Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis. Let's seek the truth and travel the long road to justice together. What you know, Alibiers? Welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi. Good to have you here. It's Friday. We're on day 5 of jury selection in Chad Daybell's case. We hit that magic number yesterday, and we hit actually over that. We got to 52, I believe. We thought they would start out with those preemptive strikes this morning. We would get that jury seated, but they are questioning the next round of jurors. Before we get started, you know the drill. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit subscribe if you haven't already. Like the video, share it with your friends, and you can ring my bell if you want notifications of when I post new content. Just click that little bell icon. Music fact of the day, the song Rebel Yell by Billy Idol. The meaning of that song, he explained to Billboard magazine. He said it was about his girlfriend at the time, Perry Lister. It was about how great I thought she was, how much I was in love with her, and how great women are, how powerful they are. It was a bit of a feminist anthem in a weird way. It was all about how relationships can free you and add a lot to your life. It was a cry of love. I love that song in the movie The Legend of Billie Jean. That's when she's running through the mall trying to escape Hubie. If you haven't seen that movie, 80s cult classic, love it. I watch that like once a year. One thing to note, yesterday we talked about Lori having that screenshot of the malachite rings on her phone from May. Just to remind you, Tammy Daybell would not be murdered until October. So as early as May, she's looking at wedding bands. At this point, neither one of their spouses are dead. Stay classy. I have to give a big thank you to Beth. You know who you are. You know what you did. I appreciate you so much. Also to the new members on YouTube. Good to have you. And a shout out to my Patreon people. The memberships on YouTube and Patreon help me to keep doing what I do every day. So I'm very grateful to you guys. And for those of you watching, when you like this video and share it, you're supporting the podcast too. So I appreciate all y'all. We're going to jump back into our timeline here. I did add some new pictures to this slideshow, so we're not looking at the same stuff over and over. They're towards the end. A few of those were taken when I was at Chad's property during Lori Vallow's sentencing. We left off going through a bunch of text messages between Lori and Charles. Charles understandably very upset about what's going on. I think there was motive to murder Charles before he said that he was going to contact Tammy Daybell, but I do think that sped things up a bit. June 29th is where we left off. The same day at 9:16 a.m., Charles emails Tammy. It says, Tammy, my name is Charles Vallow. I have some vital and disturbing information regarding your husband and my wife, Lori. This is your work email, so I'll wait to send you the evidence that is very disturbing. You may call or email me from the address where you can receive the information. I apologize to be the one sending you this, but something has to be done. I feel it's best if I shed some light on the issue. Regards, Charles Vallow. 9:32, Charles emails Chad, and the subject was emails from Lori Vallow. It reads, Chad, I'm Lori's husband, but I gathered you already knew this. She sent an email yesterday, supposedly written by me, inviting you to Arizona next week and to ghostwrite a book I'm supposedly working on. It's preposterous. I happened to run across it as she left her computer at our Houston home. I'm not paying anybody for anything, and I'm not writing a book. Either you or Lori need to tell me what's going on, or this will be exposed for all to see. Regards, Charles Vallow. There was another portion of the email that says, and does your wife know you have several of Lori's dance videos? Explain how this is in any way appropriate. She sent them to you at your request in January, Charles. That same day, Charles emails Tammy again. The subject of that was your husband and my wife. The same day, Charles emails Tammy again, and the subject of that was your husband and my wife. The body of that email said, are having an affair. Her name is Lori Vallow. I've got definitive proof in case you care to see it. Contact me. I'll share it with you. It's devastating, I know, but the truth needs to be shown. Charles Vallow. Like I said yesterday, there was no proof that Tammy ever read these emails. The school district that she worked for said either she read and deleted them or they were just deleted. There was no record of these emails in her account. Investigators sent warrants to phones and email accounts for both Tammy and Chad to see if there was any communication between Charles and Tammy. They searched records from June 28th to October 19th, the date of her murder. There were no calls between Tammy and Charles, and also there were no emails showing any communication between Charles and Tammy or Chad. Still on the 29th, Charles and Lori's brother Adam continue to text. He tells Adam that he has contacted Tammy and said it should be real interesting when he talks to her on Monday. On July 1st, Lori creates a new iCloud account and Chad activates a burner phone. We talked about this in one of the earlier episodes. He uses the fake name Boyd Dial to set the phone up, gives an address of Mesa, Arizona. Lori names him as Bubby in her contact list. And on July 1st, Lori sends Charles a text asking at 10:30 a.m., "What is your plan with JJ? Are you planning to fly with him tomorrow? Call me." Charles responds 1 minute later, "I'm going to Idaho first to meet with Tammy Daybell." Lori says she won't see you. She's my friend. She won't listen to you. Go ahead. You're ridiculous. Are you coming to JJ for the 4th or not? Charles says, "You're destroying people's lives. Had I known you were spending hours talking to Mel and poisoning her towards Brandon, I would have said something. You're disgusting. You have had a serious disconnect. Otherwise, you'd send your lover Moroni to come zap me or put me in a pod." Or there was a typo here, so it's really hard to see what Charles was saying, but he does mention something about Joe Ryan. And then at some point in this text argument, Lori calls Charles Joe Ryan. July 2nd, Zulema texts Lori she was given instructions to rip, tear, or burn the aura of Iplos to let the energy out so the entity can't re-enter. Chad tells Zulema that her and Lori have done amazing work and thanks for the help with Iplos, saying that he is so very close. Gibb told investigators later that Chad would always find some excuse as to why the casting sessions wouldn't work since Charles was still alive. The same day, Lori and Zulema text back and forth. Zulema said she was being attacked before she went to bed the night before, so she called on her angels. Lori says they're mad at the two of us for meeting that day at the temple. Lori asked if Zulema needs her to do work on her. They do go to the temple at some point this day. Charles ultimately did not come to Arizona the weekend of July 4th, 2019. Charles texted Lori and said if she wanted a break, she could go to a hotel while he's in town that next Thursday. He said he would like to stay and wake up with JJ. July 6th, Lori's friend from Hawaii, April Raymond, said this is the last time she spoke to Lori. July 8th, Charles is in Valencia, California for work, and he asked Lori to book him a room for his upcoming visit, so she does. The stay was for July 10th through the 13th. Lori sends Zulema a text asking her to call up an earthquake since Iplos was traveling there in Valencia at the time. Lori says sadly Iplos is safe, but they will continue to do work on him and eventually the elements will obey. On this date, Brandon Boudreaux files for divorce from Melanice and also asks for custody of their kids. Melanice will continue to pay on Brandon's life insurance policy, and she is the beneficiary. Zulema texts Lori, "I had to go home so I could go in my portal out there. I asked if we do that, the ramifications of things to come. We are not ready for at this time. From what I understand is when Iplos goes, things are going to be a domino effect, one after another. What do we need to do to be ready for all that's coming?" So a little bit of conflicting information for July 9th. This is the day investigators say that Lori learned of the intervention. Now, we got a bunch of documents a couple of years ago from Chandler and Gilbert, Arizona investigations into Charles's murder and the attempt on Brandon. It says that Lori learned about it from Chad due to communication between Charles and Tammy, which leads me to think that Chad was intercepting her emails. However, the indictment said she found out from her mom and sister. Charles and Adam text to make plans for Adam to come to Arizona to help with this intervention. Adam said he would keep his phone on record because they would need proof for the church official to revoke Lori's temple recommend. Charles thought Lori would just leave, but said it was worth a try. Also, Lori sends Alex the address to the new house that she just moved in. We're still on July 9th, and Gibb sends Lori a text saying that she wanted to come over, asking if she was home. At 6:20 p.m., Lori responds, "All my family and the kids are here, so it's chaos right now." Gibb says to let her know when. At 7:06 p.m., Chad calls Lori. That call lasted for an hour and 8 minutes. 7:21 p.m., Lori texts Melanice saying she needed to talk to her ASAP and she would call her in 5 minutes because she was finding out what to do. 7:22, Melanice calls Lori, but Lori was on the phone with Chad. Investigators note, based on the text messages, it was the investigators' opinion that Melanice was aware of what was going to take place with Charles in just a couple of days. At 7:23, Gibb texts Lori, "Are they there still?" And at 7:45, Chad does a Google search when you surprise someone with accusations. At 7:50, Charles sends Lori a text, "Did our boy do okay today?" Lori did not respond to that. 7:55, Gibb texting Lori again, "I'm waiting at your house, so let me know when you're ready for me to come in." At 8 o'clock, Lori texts Melanice. Melanice at this point was supposed to travel out of town the next day for a wedding. Lori says, "You can't go tomorrow. It's a setup for both of us." Still on the phone finding out the details, they have an elaborate plan. "I'll call you soon." At 8:03, Lori finally texts Melanie Gibb back saying, "I'm in the backyard on an important call. You can come back here quietly." 8:05, Melanie's texts Lori and says, "I could take all the babies with and drive and take our stuff." At 8:06, Lori responds, "You can't go at all. We both need to stay here to defend ourselves." Then 1 minute later, Lori texts her again saying, "It's coming to a head. This week will change everything." And boy, does it, y'all. At 8:08, Melanie's responds, "Probably why I have felt sick about going, even when told plan to go." At 8:14, Lori texts Melanie's to call her. At 8:15, the call between Lori and Chad ends. Investigators note that while she was talking to Chad during this time, there were also several SMS messages between them, but the content was not in the iCloud records, only on the phone record. So they knew they were texting, but they could not get the contents of those texts. From 8:15 to 8:30, Lori and Melanice talk on the phone. And when that phone call ends, Lori texts Melanice and tells her to keep Melanice and Brandon's daughter away from Brandon, her dad. 9:03, Lori sends her brother Alex a text. "So the plot thickens. Call me when you can." Now, from 9:03 to 9:50, Lori's exchanging texts with Melanie's, Alex, and Chad. Investigators were not able to retrieve those messages between Lori and Chad. At 9:16, Lori texts Melanice, "They are gathering witnesses. It's just like Twilight. They are the vulture." At 9:39, after not getting a response from Lori when he asked how JJ was, Charles sends a bunch of question marks to her. At 9:50, Lori sends a text to her brother Alex, "Getting sleepy, so I'm going to need you to stay close to me the next couple of days." Mel, too. She can't go to Utah. They're planning some kind of an intervention, but want Mel out of the way, so I'm alone. "I need to come get the stuff at your house tomorrow and secure it. Lots to do. Thank you for standing by me. It's all coming to a head this week. I will be like Nephi, I am told, and so will you." At 9:56, Alex calls Lori and they talk for 56 minutes. That night, Melanie Gibb spends the night with Lori, and Gibb told investigators she was in the process of divorcing her husband and Lori had invited her to stay. I bet you that invite came before Lori learned about the intervention, because clearly Lori was like, "Yeah, I'm busy. Don't come." Lori wakes up and tells Melanie Gibb on July 10th she needs to leave. She said Charles was coming into town and was going to kill her. Melanie Gibb asked why, and Lori said that Adam, Brandon, and Lori's dad were going to kill her for a $3 million life insurance policy. She said the three of them were all dark spirits and wanted her money. Colby said the same thing when talking to Chandler investigators, but he said it was actually Brandon, Adam, and someone named Edgar. July 10th, Charles arrives in Arizona. He texts Lori to confirm the hotel room is booked and paid for. She says it is, and he thanks her and says he'll see JJ tomorrow, saying, "I'll take him to school and pick him up. Friday too, thanks." The same day, Charles flies Lori's brother Adam to Arizona to help with that intervention. He sends Adam a text and says he's uneasy about how Lori will respond to the both of them, as well as Brandon. Charles says he'll pick JJ up and take him to school on Thursday. That would be the day Charles was murdered. He said Lori will be there and he will do the same with JJ on Friday. He says Lori will be suspicious they're recording her, so Charles tells Adam maybe he should put his phone on the counter and power it off and bring a second device. Charles says he feels Lori's just too far gone, but he said he wants to save other families from the same fate as his. He says he loves Lori more than life, but the Lori they knew is gone and he fears forever. Charles texts Lori to say he would arrive at 7:30 a.m. to pick up JJ and get him to school. Charles also texts his landlord saying he needed to find a place to live because things just weren't working out with Lori. They plan to meet up the next morning. That would be the morning he was murdered. Chad calls Lori on the 10th at 9:50 a.m. and they talk for nearly 2.5 hours. But while on the phone with Chad at 10:25 a.m., Lori texts Melanice. "I think so, but I think they're moving their plans to tomorrow since they will still try to get rid of you." Melanice replied, "I wish there was some way to somehow be at the wedding, but I know this is more important." Lori responded, "I know, baby. I'm so sorry. This is important to your mission, even though I know it's just hard to sit there." Lori, Melanice, and Alex have lunch. Lori and Alex go to their sister Summer's house. At 3:50, Chad calls Lori and they talk for 30 minutes. At 3:58, Lori texts her sister Summer to say she's on her way to Alex's house. Later that evening at 7:18, Lori texts Melanice and she says Alex is there and Charles will be coming over in the morning. We're going to go through Charles's murder in a very abbreviated manner. I have several very in-depth episodes covering the murder, the body cam footage, the interviews at the police station between Alex, Lori, and Tylee. I'll link those in the description if you really want a good look into what happened that day. Authorities in Arizona did not charge Chad in any way regarding the murder of Charles. They just said they did not have enough evidence to secure a conviction. Although Chad does some very questionable things, and we'll get to that. The day of Charles's murder, July 11th, 2019, Chad texts Lori at 6:06 a.m. Lori responds at 6:12, 7:01, and 7:33. None of those messages were retrieved by investigators. Now, at 7:32, Charles is near the house. So, right before Charles comes in and gets ambushed and shot and killed at 7:33, you got Lori sending Chad a text. How I wish we could have gotten those text messages. At 7:35 a.m., Charles is at the house and he texts Adam just before he goes inside the house where he would be killed. Charles tells Adam, Al is here, meaning Lori's brother Alex. Adam questions that and says, "It Lori's? Really? I wonder why he never called me back. They are planning something." And Charles says, "Absolutely." Adam said, "I was supposed to spend the night at his house last night. She probably blocked that." Charles responds, "What you do is up to you." Sometime after this text and between 7:49 a.m., Charles is ambushed, shot, and killed by Alex Cox. Just to give you a rundown of what they say happened is that Lori and Charles get into an argument. Lori takes Charles's phone. He's chasing her. Tylee wakes up, has a baseball bat, sort of presents that to Charles, telling him to back off. Alex claims that they were grappling on the ground and that Charles was hitting him in the head with the bat. And then he changes his story that he was hit from behind. There are so many discrepancies in this, y'all. It is ridiculous. There was a lot missed. I think that had they caught it, we wouldn't be where we are today. And unfortunately, the only victim would be Charles. Lori said she was inside the house. Alex said she wasn't inside the house, just a lot of discrepancies. So if you're interested in those, check out the link in the description. At 7:49 a.m., Lori, JJ, and Tylee leave the house with Charles's phone and his rental car. At the same time, Lori texts Melanice. At 7:52 a.m., Alex calls Lori. Now, Alex was asked several times in his police interview if he called Lori. He denied it. Between 8:52 and 8:06 a.m., Lori and Melanice exchange 4 text messages. At 7:54 a.m., Lori, JJ, and Tylee can be seen on surveillance at a Burger King drive-thru. JJ's in the front seat, Tylee is in the back seat. Just a side note, JJ's favorite thing for breakfast were chicken fries and Sprite. At 8:06, Alex calls Lori. That call lasted 56 seconds. At 8:08, Lori goes to a Walgreens. It was closed. So at 8:17, she arrives at a second Walgreens. At 8:19, Lori buys 2 pair of flip-flops and pays in cash. One pair was yellow and green and patterned. The other was black and white striped with another color. She's seen going into the store with flip-flops on. I just wonder if she got different flip-flops because perhaps hers had biological evidence on it. Otherwise, it's a little strange to me. At 8:24 to 8:32, Lori is near or at JJ's school to drop him off. At 8:28, Zulema texts Lori she is on her way to the temple and she will be in the celestial room. At 8:32 a.m., Alex calls 911 and he says the shooting happened a couple of minutes ago. So I stink at math, but by my calculations, for over 40 minutes, Charles Vallow lay on that floor dead or dying before 911 was called. The 911 call showed no emotion, totally unaffected. He says he shot him in self-defense. They switched that call to the medic. The medic asks Alex if he's willing to see if Charles is breathing, and Alex is like, sure. Alex says he's not breathing. The medic asked if he's willing to perform CPR. Alex says, no, I don't know how to do that. Police come on and ask where the gun is. Alex tells police the gun is in his room and it's a .45. Alex tells them Charles was shot at 8:20. By 8:36, we have police and first responders arriving. And to further prove, this is graphic, by the way, that Alex did not do CPR, when medics do begin, blood oozes out of the wounds. And if Alex had been doing CPR, that would not have happened. Also, Alex had no blood on him. And I'm going to tell you right now, I've done CPR and you sweat. There was none of that with Alex. If he had done CPR the whole time he said he did, he would have been wringing wet. At 8:43, Alex is questioned outside the home by Chandler PD. At 8:48, Lori and Tylee return to the residence. At 8:58, an officer talks to Lori and Tylee. Also, Alex is seen on body cam rubbing his little boo-boo with a paper towel. It looks to me like he's trying to keep it bleeding. My theory is that Lori whacked him in the head with the bat for the purpose of their alibi. When Lori and Tylee arrive, Lori's very lighthearted. She's smiling. She's joking around that they've only lived there a few weeks. And she's like, hi, neighbor, sorry. Tylee, on the other hand, is self-soothing. She's kind of keeping her arms close to her. Her face is red, and she just seems clearly distraught. 100% believe that Tylee was coached on the way to Walgreens and taken JJ and back on what to do and what to say when eventually they would be questioned. I do not think for 1 second Tylee was in on this. Tylee was put in an unimaginable position for a 16-year-old. And you can see when she's being interviewed by police, that emotion coming out in her. And the thing that breaks my heart is the times where Tylee shows emotion, she is able to very quickly cut that off. I think that is a behavior that Tylee has learned over the years dealing with her mom and all the craziness that Lori brought to her life. At one point, when the cops are standing there talking to them, it struck me as odd because at one point, Lori looks at Tylee and says, what? The cop talks to Tylee and mentions about her being a new driver and asked how she likes it. Tylee says she's almost 17 and also says she drove alone from Texas, so she's used to it. I don't know of many people who would let their 16-year-old drive from Texas to Arizona alone, but I'm also not Lori Vallow. There is footage of Alex's drive to the police station in the cruiser with the officer. It was so bizarre, a very normal conversation. They talked about random things like heat in the summer. Alex talks to the cop about having to wear the Kevlar, and they just talk about, in general, how hot it is to be wearing that. At the police station, Tylee, Lori, and Alex are interviewed separately, and they give different versions, like I said, of what happened. A couple of things to note. There are 1,000 things I could talk about, but Alex says he can't remember what Charles and Lori were arguing about. I mean, if you shoot and kill somebody, you would think all that would be very fresh in your mind, but not to Alex. Also, when talking to police, investigators noted Alex said he feared for his life. That is a phrase taught in concealed weapon classes. Random fact, the police offered Lori a victim's advocate 30 minutes into her interview. After the interview, police drive the three of them home. The crime scene was still being processed, so they left. Detective Moffitt noted, I drove Alex, Lori, and Tylee back to the residence on 4 peaks so they could get a vehicle and go somewhere while the scene was processed. During the ride back to the residence, there was no further discussion about this incident. In the van ride, there was informal conversation by mainly Lori. The conversation was very lighthearted and seemed odd in light of the events of the day. Alex, Lori, and Tylee left the residence, and I remained on scene at the residence while the scene was completed. At 2 p.m., investigators try to call Lori and Alex on their phones to ask if they could come back to the house, but they didn't answer. The investigator did leave voicemails. They did arrive back while investigators were still there. Alex stays with investigators, and Lori asked to leave with Tylee to pick JJ up from school. In an email exchange between investigators way later on December 5th, 2019, but at this point, remember, all investigators know is that JJ and Tylee are missing. In those exchanges between investigators, it says statements made by Lori, Alex, and Tylee were later found to be inconsistent with evidence found in the investigation. But at 4 o'clock on the day Charles was murdered, Lori calls Colby and tells him that Charles had a heart attack and died. She told him Charles had gotten frustrated and died. She indicated Tylee was there when he died, and it worried Colby that Tylee might have witnessed that. 7 o'clock that night, Colby goes over to the house. That was his first time, by the way, being at that particular house. Tylee met him at the door and immediately hugged him and started crying. Now at 7:36, Chad calls Valley of the Sun mortuary, saying his name is Chad Daybell.
Hello, my name is Sarah. I'm assistant on the calls. How can I help you today?
We just had a death in the family, and we really don't want anything but a cremation, and then to send the cremains to a family in Louisiana. Just a simple, nothing other than a cremation and sending him to his family for a service in Louisiana. So Is there any way to know a ballpark price on that?
Yes, and I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Let me transfer you over to the director who can assist you with the pricing. What is your name, please?
It is Chad Daybell,
How do you spell the last name, please?
Dabal, Daybell.
How are you related to the person who passed?
I'm his nephew.
And then also, this is for the Valley of the Suns in Chandler, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, he lives there in Chandler. I live in Iowa, so I'm just trying to help out.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yes, what is your uncle's name for reference, please?
He is John Daybell.
And last name?
Well, Dabal, the same. John.
Do you have a middle name?
Myron.
M-Y-R-O-N?
Yeah.
And Jan, what is your phone number in case we get disconnected?
Yeah. This number, 515, I don't actually know my own number. Let me look real quick.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Is he at a nursing home, hospital, or residence?
He passed away in a hospital. I don't know the details.
Yeah, it's just for, to know, because sometimes it's different if it's a residential or hospital or nursing home.
I'm thinking they're sending into the medical examiner. I'm not sure. I should have had more information before I called. I'm sorry.
That's okay. And what? Cremation. What shipping? To which city?
New Orleans. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, one moment please, Chad, stay on the line. Let me transfer you over to the director who can assist you with that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Hello, Chad?
Yeah.
Thank you for holding. I do have the director, Carissa, on the line to further assist you.
Okay,
Thank you.
My name is Carissa. I'm a funeral director with Vallow Mortuary and Cemetery. I understand that your uncle passed away.
Yes, and I'm just starting the process for the family. He didn't have many relatives. I'm his nephew. I live in Iowa. But what they want to do is, yeah, sad to see him go. Yeah, I think he's going to the medical examiner. I don't know all the details, but what the family basically wants is just to have him cremated there in Chandler and then have his cremated shipped to New Orleans, and we'll deal with the service later. So just trying to get a ballpark.
Okay. So for a cremation, we are able to do our cremation for $1,695. Now, what that's going to include is the transportation and our care, the transportation to and from our crematory, our basic professional fees, as well as our crematory fee. Now, there's going to be a couple other charges there for you. So we are going to have death certificates, which are 20 away fees with the processing fee, $15 permit fee, and then we're able to do that transfer through the mail for you, and that's $150 fee for you.
Okay. Like the UPS or something, I guess.
Okay.
So close about 2,000 probably. Kind of a ballpark, yeah.
Close to that.
Okay. Well, that helps me a lot. I'm going to call one or two others, but I'll get back to you if we come that direction. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. If you need anything else, give me a call.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Investigators noted the same card Lori used to pay the mortuary for Charles's cremation was the same card she used to buy Chad's plane ticket from Provo, Utah to Arizona in July of 2019. Zulema testified at Lori's trial the number 711 was significant to Lori. She mentioned that number a lot and that she had a spiritual connection with that number. Zulema also said when the murder of Charles happened on July 11th, which is 7/11, Zulema testified that Lori said it had been orchestrated by God. So that's where we're going to end today. The next couple of episodes, we're going to finish this up. We're just going to jump in up to arrest. That way we know the story. And then we'll fill in those gaps here at Chad's trial. I think there's a lot we haven't learned. I know a lot of you are ready for this trial. I'll be live streaming it every day. So come in and chat with us. If I'm not doing something on Law and Crime Network, I'll be going live at lunchtime so we can talk about the testimony we've heard. So go subscribe if you haven't. All right, guys, that's it. We'll see you.